Hi, welcome back to Everyday Behavior. My name is Mary Ann Shepard, and this is the third video in our series for this month. During this video, we're talking about SMART goals. So what exactly are SMART goals? SMART goals SMART is an acronym for very specific things that you want to include in a goal, or that you can look at a goal to see if it's a well-rounded, complete goal. So SMART goals are specific, they're measurable. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. So we talked about how goals can be specific. Those are your WH questions. So who's responsible? What will be accomplished? When will it be accomplished by? Where will it be taught? And why is the goal important? You're measurable. We talked during the last series about different tools that you can use to make goals measurable. So can you use things like the BB map, or the ABLES, or the GARS, or the BASC Flex, or the ECBE, the IBERG Child Behavior Checklist? So what other things can you be using to make your goals measurable? I think sometimes when we're in special education, if we don't have those guidelines, it's really hard to make some of those behavioral or social emotional goals measurable. And those are some things that are really helpful in making those goals measurable or objective for those more abstract goals. So then you want to make sure goals are achievable. So when we think about running, a lot of times we'll say, hey, I want the child to be able to run, or I want to be able to run. Well, that's a pretty broad goal. How far do you want to be able to run? Where do you want to be able to run? Why do you want to be able to run? So those are those WH questions. But then you aren't going to say in 1 year that I want to be able to run a marathon, especially if you've never run before. Suddenly being able to run a marathon in 1 year isn't necessarily achievable for all individuals. So maybe you set your goal at, I want to be able to run a 5K. Let's apply that to kids in school. So rather than saying they will engage in appropriate pro-social skills, you can say, I want them to be able to engage in a 5-minute competitive turn-taking game. So you're going to start out, how are we going to break that down into achievable objectives? You're going to say the student will be able to engage in turn-taking with another person. And then the student will be able to engage in turn-taking with an adult. And then the student will be able to engage in turn-taking with a cooperative game, such as Feed the Woozle. And then the child will be able to engage in a cooperative game with a peer. So now we're switching from an adult who's very forgiving and accommodating to a peer who has less forgiveness and accommodation for the child. Then once we can do that, we're going to say, okay, now we want to be able to engage in a competitive game. So something such as Connect 4 or Candyland, Sequence for Kids. And so we want them to be able to engage in a round of that game, or 5 minutes of a game such as that. Once they can do that, then we need to look at, can they deliver compliments and engage in good sportsmanship? So compliments or reassurance to the friend. Can they say good game and give a high five? So we're looking at those next things. We talked about in that first video that the goals should be socially relevant or socially valid, social validity. So is this the right time to engage in this goal? Does it align with the needs of the parent? So a lot of times parents in my office will bring very simple goals to the table of, hey, if we can make this difference, it has a huge impact on the life of my child. I was recently working with a child who couldn't tell time. Now, this individual is in his early teens, and so it's very embarrassing for him that maybe a friend will say, hey, what time is it? And he can't look up at the clock to see what time it is. He can't sign himself into school because there's an analog clock there on the wall to sign yourself in, and he's very self-conscious of not being able to sign himself in with the accurate time. And so that is a very socially valid goal for that particular child. And it opens up so many other possibilities for the child if he can tell time on an analog clock. And so do other goals need to be addressed before the child can tell time? So little things that you need to look at are, can they count by fives? Do we need to address that goal before we can address time? Because typically we estimate time based on fives. So that's a basic goal that might need to be addressed first. If it lacks the relevance of time-based, so is it relevant? Is it realistic? Is it applicable to the family and the child? Then you're not going to succeed, because it's not going to be a meaningful goal for the family or for the child or for you as a teacher at that time. And so it might be left off or forgotten. So when you want to look at your goals, what is going to be impactful for this child? What's going to be relevant to the family or to the child? What are we going to be following up on? So those are all things that you want to think about in your SMART goals. You can find a resource to go along with this on our Facebook page. So if you look for us on Everyday Behaviors with Dr. Mary Ann on Facebook, you'll find additional resources to go along with our goal setting unit. You can also find additional resources on our website at www.everydaybehaviors.com, or I encourage you to follow us on YouTube so that you can get notifications of when new videos are released. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon.